The California sun beat down on the film set like a hammer. It was 1982, a major action film production. The kind of Hollywood production that required hundreds of people, miles of cable, tons of equipment, and an army of assistants to keep everything running smoothly. Arnold Schwarzenegger arrived at 6 a.m., carrying a single bag. He walked onto the set, and immediately the energy shifted, not in recognition, but in confusion. Who was this guy? Where did he come from? Why was he here? One of the assistant directors, a young guy named Derek who had been in the film industry for about 3 years, saw Arnold walking across the set. "Hey!" Derek called out. "Hey, can you help us move this equipment over there?" Arnold stopped, looked at Derek, said nothing for a moment. "Sure," Arnold said simply, his Austrian accent thick and distinctive. Derek didn't even process the accent, didn't even really look at Arnold's face. Just saw a big guy and thought, "Equipment mover. Perfect. Great," Derek said. "We need to move all of this lighting rig to the other side of the set. It's heavy, so grab some help, okay?" Arnold nodded, walked over to the lighting rig, and without asking for help, he lifted it, not with struggle, not with effort, just lifted it like it weighed nothing, like it was a prop made of foam instead of steel and electricity. Derek's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't think much of it. Guys who moved equipment were usually strong. That was the whole point of their job. "Over there," Derek pointed, "by the camera marks." Arnold carried the equipment across the set, placed it exactly where it needed to be, came back. For the next hour, Arnold moved equipment, cables, props, heavy metal structures. Everything that needed moving, he moved, and he did it silently, without complaint, without asking questions, just did the work. But here's the thing that nobody noticed. Arnold was studying the set. He was watching the camera angles. He was observing how the light fell. He was understanding the space. He was preparing, because Arnold didn't know it yet, but he was about to step in front of those cameras. He was about to be the star of this film. He was about to change everything. But nobody knew that. Not yet. Around 8 a.m., another assistant director came up to Arnold. Her name was Lisa. She was holding a clipboard and looking stressed. "Hey, you," she said, not unkindly. "We need someone to stand in for the stunt double during camera setup. Can you do that?" Arnold looked at her. "What do I need to do?" "Just stand there where the actor will be standing, so we can set the lighting and camera positions. You just stand there and don't move." "Okay," Arnold said. He walked to the mark, stood exactly where Lisa pointed, stood still while the cinematographer adjusted lights, while the camera operator adjusted focus, while the director of photography fine-tuned every detail. Arnold stood there like a statue. Perfect posture, perfect stillness, perfect understanding of what was being asked of him. The gaffer, the head electrician, looked at Arnold and nodded approvingly. Good stand-in. Doesn't move, doesn't complain, just stands there. But what the gaffer didn't understand was that Arnold wasn't just standing there. He was learning. He was absorbing. He was preparing his body and mind for what was about to happen. By 9 a.m., word had spread across the set. There was a new guy, a big guy, moving equipment, doing stand-in work. Nobody important, just a worker, probably trying to break into the film industry, probably hoping for a speaking role or an extra part. That was the assumption. That was the narrative. That was the story everyone told themselves. One of the crew members, a lighting technician named Marcus, even joked about it. "That new guy's probably the best grip we've got. Strong as hell. No attitude. Probably won't last more than a week before he gets frustrated and quits." Everyone laughed, because that was the story of Hollywood. People came. They did the unglamorous work. They waited for their big break. And when they realized it wasn't coming, they left. But Arnold wasn't leaving. He was just getting started. Around 10 a.m., one of the production assistants, a girl named Jennifer who was fresh out of college and new to the industry, approached Arnold with a stack of papers. "Hey, we need you to fill out some paperwork for payroll. Cast and crew roster. You need to write down your name, your agent, your SAG number if you have one." Arnold took the papers, started filling them out, wrote his name carefully, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then he paused at the agent field, thought about it, and wrote down his agent's information. Jennifer glanced at the paperwork, didn't really look at the name, just saw that it was filled out. Great, thanks. Just bring it to the production office when you're done. She walked away. What Jennifer didn't know was that she was holding the paperwork for the film's lead actor. She didn't know that the name she just saw would become legendary. She didn't know that she had just witnessed the beginning of something extraordinary. By noon, Arnold had moved approximately 2 tons of equipment. He had served as a stand-in for 3 different shots. He had helped crew members with technical adjustments. He had basically done the work of 5 people. And nobody, absolutely nobody, had recognized him. The cast members arrived around 1 p.m. The lead actor, the supporting actors, a few famous names, people who had done action films before, people who thought they understood what action cinema was supposed to be. They walked past Arnold without a glance. He was part of the scenery to them, part of the background, just another worker making their day possible. One of the lead actors, a guy named Frank who had been in a few action movies, actually bumped into Arnold while walking to his trailer. "Watch it," Frank said, annoyed at the interruption. Arnold apologized, moved out of the way. Let Frank continue to his trailer. Frank didn't even look at Arnold, didn't even register his existence, just moved on. The tension on set was building now. The director hadn't arrived yet. The key crew was getting nervous. There were still adjustments to make, still preparations. Derek, the assistant director who had first given Arnold equipment to move, was checking his watch. Where is he? The director should have been here by now. Running late? Another assistant said. Traffic on the 101. He said he'd be here by 2 p.m. So they waited, and while they waited, Arnold continued working, continued observing, continued preparing. Jennifer came back over to Arnold around 1:30 p.m. "Hey, thanks for filling out the paperwork. By the way, we should probably get you a proper ID badge. You're going to need one to be on set." "Okay," Arnold said. She snapped a quick ID photo. Arnold stood there, serious, straight-faced. The photo was terrible, blurry, dark, unflattering. But it was official. Jennifer laminated it, handed it to Arnold. "Welcome to the set," she said with a smile. Arnold looked at the badge, at his name, at the terrible photo, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or anticipation. "Thank you," he said. The day continued. More equipment moved, more adjustments made, more assumptions reinforced. The big guy was strong. The big guy was reliable. The big guy wasn't important. He was just a worker. By 2:15 p.m., a commotion started at the entrance to the set. A car pulled up. A man got out, dressed in black, confident, moving with purpose. This was the director. This was the person who would make the final decisions. This was the person who controlled the vision of the entire film. The director's name was John. He was a veteran of action films. He had made 3 successful action movies. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he wanted. And he walked straight to Derek. "Everything set?" John asked. "Yeah, almost," Derek said. "We're just waiting on." "Where's the new actor?" John interrupted. Derek looked confused. "New actor? What new actor?" John stared at him like he was insane. "The lead actor, Arnold. Where is he?" Derek's face went pale. We thought he was..." "He's been here all morning," Lisa said quietly, realizing what had happened. "We thought he was equipment crew." John's expression didn't change. "Show me." Derek looked around the set frantically. He was just... Arnold. Arnold turned. He had been helping move another piece of equipment. He walked over calmly, still wearing the terrible ID badge, still looking like a worker rather than a star. John looked at Arnold, really looked at him, took in his size, his presence, his posture, his eyes. "You're Arnold?" John asked. "Yes," Arnold said simply. John nodded slowly. "You've been moving equipment all morning." "Yes," Arnold said. "I wanted to understand the set." For a moment, John said nothing. He just looked at Arnold. And something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition, a moment of clarity where everything made sense. "Okay," John said finally, "we're going to do this differently than I planned. I want you to watch the first few takes. I want you to see how the camera moves, how the light works, how the space flows. Then I want you to show me what you can do." "Okay," Arnold said. What happened next was a shocking part. For the next 3 hours, Arnold became a student. He watched the camera operator. He watched the cinematographer. He watched the lighting adjustments. He observed everything. He didn't complain. He didn't make suggestions. He just absorbed. And then, when John finally called him to the mark and said, "Action," Arnold stepped into the role like he had been born to be there. The take was perfect. Not good, not great. Perfect. The movement was precise. The presence was commanding. The physicality was exactly what the scene needed. John called cut and just stared at Arnold for a moment. "Run it again," John said. The second take was even better. By the third take, everyone on set understood what had happened. The big guy who had been moving equipment all morning was the lead actor, and he was extraordinary. Derek approached Arnold after the takes wrapped for the day. I didn't know. I'm so sorry, I thought you were." "I know," Arnold said. "It's okay. But why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell us who you were?" Arnold thought about it for a moment. "Because," he said, "if I had told you, you would have treated me differently. You would have had expectations. You would have been worried about impressing me or disappointing me. Instead, you treated me like a worker. And I learned more about how this set works in 3 hours than I could have learned any other way." Derek didn't know what to say. Later that night, after everyone had left the set, John found Arnold sitting alone, looking at the empty stage. "You moved equipment all morning," John said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Arnold said. "Why?" "Because," Arnold said, "I needed to understand the space before I could inhabit it. I needed to feel the weight of the objects, the dimensions, the flow. I couldn't do that from a trailer." John nodded. "Most actors won't do that. Most actors think they're too important to move equipment. Most actors," Arnold said, "don't understand that there is no too important on a film set. Everyone is important. The person moving equipment is as important as the person in front of the camera. They just have different roles." John looked at Arnold for a long moment, and he knew, in that instant, that he had made the right choice. That this Austrian bodybuilder who nobody recognized was going to change action cinema forever. "You're going to be something special," John said. "I hope so," Arnold replied. The next day, the word spread across the Hollywood community. There was a new actor on set, a big guy named Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had moved equipment all morning without anyone knowing he was the lead. He had worked like a crew member. He had been treated like an extra. And when he stepped in front of the camera, he had shown everyone why John had chosen him. Some people thought it was unprofessional. Some people thought he should have announced himself. Some people thought it was a publicity stunt. But Arnold knew the truth. It wasn't about publicity. It wasn't about ego. It was about preparation. It was about understanding. It was about approaching the work with humility instead of arrogance. And that lesson, that approach, would define everything he did from that moment forward. The shocking truth came later, when the film was released. Critics and audiences didn't know that the lead actor had spent his first morning on a major Hollywood film set moving equipment. They didn't know that he had learned the space instead of demanding the space. They didn't know that his preparation had been radical and unconventional. They just knew that he was extraordinary. What Arnold understood, what he had learned in that morning of moving equipment and observing light and understanding the space, was that true power doesn't announce itself. True excellence doesn't demand recognition. True mastery is quiet, patient, and willing to do the work that others consider beneath them. The new actor on set, the figurine, the equipment mover, the stand-in, that was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And by the time everyone realized who he actually was, he had already won. He had already learned everything he needed to learn. He had already prepared in ways that would serve him for the rest of his career. Because Arnold knew something that most people never learn. The greatest strength is being willing to be underestimated. The greatest power is doing the work that others refuse to do. The greatest achievement is earning respect through silence rather than demanding it through words. He was a new actor on set, and by being willing to be treated like a worker, he became a legend. And that's the real story. Not about being recognized, but about being willing to go unrecognized. Not about being important, but about doing important work that nobody sees. That's the untold story of Arnold on a Hollywood film set, moving equipment, learning space, preparing silently, and then, when the director finally called action, becoming unstoppable.